Welcome to the Nazareth University Centennial Podcast. I'm your host, Timothy Nealand, and in each episode, I'll be guiding you through stories of amazing alumni, fascinating faculty, or the hidden history of the university. Today's episode.
My memories of Nazareth are wonderful.
Nazareth is just this huge thing in my life.
Those were Kathy Quinn and Karen Larimer, Nazareth alumni from the classes of 1965 and 1966. They took part in the Nazareth Centennial Oral History Project along with other graduates from the 1960s, and those stories are the subject of this episode.
French Road was a country road. I mean, there were only 4 buildings. There was Lourdes, Medaya, Smith, and the library. From then on, it was literally farmland.
We had Medaya and Lourdes, the library, and down here...
Down here is the basement of Lorette Wilmot Library.
Was the chapel and some classrooms,
really?
Lower level, Smith Hall, and then what's now Cabaret.
Yep.
It wasn't then, but it was our gym. Everything was in Smith Hall.
There were no classes in the Golisano Academic Center, which may surprise Nazareth students of 2023. What we now call GAC was the mother house where the Sisters of St. Joseph lived, and Nazareth students came over only for Sunday Mass in the Linehan Chapel. Carney Hall was being constructed in 1963 and the Arts Center in 1967.
The president of the college stood up and greeted us as freshmen, and she says, "Now look to your right and look to your left. At graduation, one of you 3 won't be here."
The classes of the 1960s are tight-knit groups who keep in touch to this day. The class of 66 in particular was described by grad Dorothy Zelensky Linden in Nazareth's Connections magazine as a close sisterhood who meets from all over the country to celebrate their birthdays every 5 years, aside from Nazareth reunions. They also gather routinely for large Zoom meetings.
There is something called the 51 plus luncheons, so I've been coming for them. The 50th anniversary reunion is a big deal, but after that there's a smaller group with other classes, which is really nice because otherwise the reunions are so big that you don't get to see the people that you want to see. But at the 51 plus, there's a table for your class.
I do keep in touch now, with reunions, getting back together, especially the 50th and the 51 plus club. There's a group of us that are always there, and so we do kind of keep in touch.
When I say that I have all these friends from 54 years ago, we graduated, and we're still in touch, and we still see each other, and a lot of people my age say, well, I don't have any friends left from college. I don't keep in touch with anybody. And I always tell them that we were locked up together. So we made really good friends because we were locked up in these dormitories.
Yeah. I also think that the class of 63 was different from maybe some of the other classes, even in that same generation. Right from the beginning, there was a spirit, there was a camaraderie. And the proof is the fact that we all are still in contact with each other 60 years later. Not because we have to, but because we like each other and we're interested in each other.
Many of the class were drawn to Nazareth because of the scholarships offered to valedictorians, which meant these were especially bright groups of students.
If you were graduated first or second in your class and you were female, they offered you a scholarship here.
We had very strong women. I have a theory that if you wanted to go to a Catholic college and you were a woman, in those days, places like Holy Cross and Notre Dame and Fordham, and they didn't admit women. So a lot of women who could have gotten into those places today, or then, came here. I felt like there were lots of smart women, very interesting people.
Students were a combination of first-generation and legacy families. Most of them came from Catholic backgrounds. Along with on-campus residents, there were commuters, including boarders.
I was on the 4th floor of Medaya, which was the attic, but they opened it for our class. We had one payphone in the hall. We had tiny little rooms. We had no fire escapes. I think about it just from a safety point of view. God, what if there had been a fire? And of course, there were a lot of girls who smoked in the smoker downstairs, but my roommate, for one, would go in our closet sometimes to smoke, and I thought, oh, well, we could have set the entire building on fire. We wouldn't have been able to get out. We didn't even have a way to lock our doors. Not that I remember. We were always popping into one another's rooms, and the nuns were pretty much knew everything.
I had a feeling when I was in college that there was kind of a separation between the women who lived on campus and the women who came in, who were day hops, we called them. There was a sense of belonging that those women didn't have, I don't think.
The day students had their group of friends, and the resident students had their, even though we sort of intermingled, it just would have been hard to break into the resident life.
I lived at home. I was what they called a day hop. It was good because we had our own little group of people. We would get together and do things socially, and some of those friendships are still alive today.
I cooked and cleaned for my room and board, and I didn't have a car, so I had to usually get rides with some of the upperclassmen, but I still took part in a lot of the social activities, not the dorm activities necessarily. See, I couldn't stay after school because I usually had to get a ride home.
It was the 60s. The times, they were a-changing, and Nazareth was no exception.
The school was growing in size and was being challenged by both internal and outside forces to take a look at its Catholic nature. What does Catholic mean? And I think it still struggles with that.
They began cooperating with St. John Fisher for classes. So Nazareth students could take Fisher classes. Fisher students could take Nazareth classes.
There were two of us. There was Bernie Nazinski and myself, and we both decided we'd take the physics class over at Fisher. Well, first of all, it was the Fisher students, the guys over there with, how did you get in this class? All right. But the bigger thing was the fact that we were on our own to get down to that class. So we hiked, we rode bikes, we hitched, okay? Begged, borrowed, and pleaded for a ride, okay? But we managed.
If Nazareth students were out walking on East Avenue, people would stop and give you a ride into town or over to Fisher.
One alumna remembers protesting the building of the Arts Center on campus because it would destroy the lawn space. Some students watched John F. Kennedy's televised inauguration together, and some remember Sister Josephine Louise delivering the news of his assassination. Nazareth College was founded by the Sisters of St. Joseph, and the women who ran the college, as well as many of the teachers, were nuns.
The Sisters of St. Joseph were so wonderful. They were just delightful women. They treated us like women.
Many of these narrators discussed teachers who influenced them heavily at Nazareth.
There was a dean, Sister Josephine Louise, who was seminal. I mean, anybody in our era who knew Sister Josephine Louise would say that she was marvelous.
They used to call her Joe Louis, Josephine Louise.
And she had been a business teacher and a businesswoman, I think, before she entered the convent. She just taught a lot about backbone that I think was important.
She was the dean of students, so she wanted to know, tell me what motels the girls are going to their boyfriends with. Just wonderful little things like that. She'd get you privately. I'd say, I don't know, sister, I really don't know. I really didn't know.
Sister Helen Daniel was the president of the school, and she was a lovely woman. She was just a beautiful woman, very refined, very well-spoken. Everybody loved Sister Helen Daniel.
My father said when he met her, came to Parents' Weekend, he said she had the voice of what I expected the Blessed Virgin Mary to sound like. She was a drama teacher. She was marvelous. So she was very much an influence.
A lovely, lovely woman who was so impressive in her grace and in her intelligence.
She was a wonderful woman, very forward-thinking.
Father Shannon was wonderful.
There was a priest named William Shannon here who was the chaplain, who was the first person in most of us, the Catholic girls' school lives, that allowed us to question our faith, allowed us to question a lot of stuff, birth control, and all kinds of things that were very prescribed for us at that time, in the early 60s in church. So he was very liberating.
Monsignor Shannon, he was absolutely wonderful. He embraced the Vatican Council. Every Sunday when we went to Mass, I mean, you never knew what was going to happen, because if they said it in Rome, we were going to do it here. He was really, really a wonderful, wonderful person. He would call them soirees. In the evening, I don't know how often he did it, but, he would invite the students to come in and visit with him and just hang out. He was a wonderful, wonderful speaker, and he used to speak at, Mass. Every Sunday he would speak, and he was absolutely great.
In a time when many women did not even complete high school, let alone go to college, Nazareth provided strong role models in the form of the highly educated teachers who molded students to become the best versions of themselves.
Something I really admired about the Sisters of St. Joseph was that they sent their sisters to Oxford, to Harvard. I mean, education was very important to them. They wanted to have sisters who could teach young women a quality education.
Our professors were women, who were educated at the Sorbonne.
In 1916. I mean,
They were there at the Sorbonne in the 20s, all right, where it was unheard of, for women to get any sort of higher education. Our English professor at that point was Sister Thomas Marion, and she had just graduated from Oxford. All right, now, so, I mean, we had women who were really well educated, all right, traveled, all right, who came back here. So when you think of this being as a small Catholic college, you think maybe, a couple of nuns hobbled over from the mother house. But that wasn't the case.
Miss Rosemary White, she came and knocked on the door one day. She had a British accent. She'd spent too long at Oxford. She was the one, whenever she was a teacher here, a professor of English, and whenever you had the graduation ceremonies, you could always tell because she had a mink
Ermine
robe. Cap and gown, a robe with a little square.
When you get your doctorate
from Oxford.
those are your colors aren't blue or red. It's ermine.
Real ermine. Anyway, she knocked on the door, and she said, "I would like to teach English here, and I'll do it for free." And they said, "Oh my God." So they took her in. Boy, she was a taskmaster. If you did not show up at her class every single 3 times a week, you had to write a note explaining why you weren't there, or you weren't allowed back in. So you couldn't just skip class with her. The others you could slide. But if she was teaching for free, the rules of the college were you better show up.
So, eventually they paid her.
Well, eventually the Social Security thing kicked in. And they came to her and they said, "Look, you can't work for free anymore. It's called slavery. So we have to pay you something and collect Social Security for your retirement." She says, "Well, I don't need any money for retirement. My father left me perfectly well off." So, but they made her. So every other year she took a salary until she retired.
So this was the caliber of a woman, who showed up, who was going to be the professor, the teacher of the
she
day.
was chairman of the English department for a while. But anyways, she lived to be 90 years old.
God bless her.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's what we're working on.
And, that was what I was going to say. And when she died, she left $2 million to the college.
Faculty took a personal interest in students. One alumna, Terry Noonan, switched majors due to the influence of Dr. Mary T. Bush, another beloved teacher. The SSJ were a presence throughout campus life as there were no RAs.
We had a house mother who was a nun on each floor. So she would come around and peek in the room.
When I was a freshman, there was a mixer or something going on, and I don't know why I wasn't there. I was in my dorm room. And Sister Mary Lord, she was wonderful. She taught freshman theology, and she happened to be my floor mother, because the nuns used to live on the floors with us. She knocked on my door and said, "What are you doing here when you should be over there dancing or whatever?" And I said, I don't know what I said to her, but she shooed me out and I went to the dance. She didn't want me to sit in my room.
The young women who attended Nazareth assumed leadership roles on campus and took these skills and expectations out into the world with them, becoming leaders in their own fields.
Without men around, you did not defer to men. If there was going to be a leader, you were going to have to be a leader. There was no way else to do it. And that was an attitude that carried over to other places.
It allowed women to hold positions of leadership that normally would have gone to a male.
When you're in an all-girls school, the president was a woman, the vice president was a woman, treasurer was a woman, the secretary was a woman.
I wanted a place where women could develop their own sense of value and sense of importance. I became the junior class president. I was president of the undergraduate association. Those were opportunities that I might not have had if I'd been on a co-ed campus at the time.
Tuition costs in the 60s shocked the student interviewers.
Tuition was $400. $400 a semester, and if you boarded, it was another $400. So for the semester, all right, it was a total of $800. Now, that did not include books or anything extra. That was tuition and board was $8. Yeah, that's how far back we go.
There were work-study jobs, and they enabled students to attend who otherwise would have had a financial barrier.
It was a student work scholarship to be a waitress. We worked in the kitchen, we washed dishes, but some of them went out and actually waited on tables.
I was a waitress, so you either did breakfast, lunch, or dinner, so I got some meals to sit and linger.
My job was working in the dining room, which was so much fun because, well, there was just a camaraderie there that I don't even know if they still have that kind of camaraderie in the kitchen anymore, but the waitresses became good friends, and the kids on the garbage line, I think, had more fun than we did, but anyway. So then I moved from there into a head waitress position, which was wonderful.
Nazareth also had a program where you could live with a family and babysit or whatever, and that would take care of your room and board. There were families in the neighborhood on the bus route. I had my choice of 3 different families, and it worked out very well. I was able to live there over the summers, which for me was terrific, so that I could get a 4-year degree without any loans.
The school rules were a bit more restrictive than students of 2023 face.
Do they campus people anymore? You don't even know what that is. I love it. Well, if you came in late, you couldn't go out the following weekend. You couldn't leave the campus.
We had ridiculous curfews.
We had to be in the dorms at, I think, 7. It was a compulsory study hour from 7 to 9. And then after that, the smokers were open. We could go down to the smoker, the lounge. We could stay there till, I think, 10. And then we were expected to be back in our rooms.
We had study hours from 7:30 to 9:30. We had to be in our room or the library, quiet.
We had to be in by 7:30 every night, or in the library and in our dorms by 9:30. We couldn't wear pants on the campus. Absolutely not. If you were going to the tennis court, you had to put a trench coat on when you went out. You could not wear slacks anywhere, not even in the dorm. We had to wear stockings to dinner, not knee socks, stockings, and not any of those light sweaters, or the light sweaters we could wear, not those bulky sweaters. You couldn't wear those. Those were not dressy enough.
For dinner, we put on our little pumps. We could only wear pants if it was 25 below and we had to walk into Pittsford to do some banking or something. We always wore skirts, dresses.
And Pittsford, the people in Pittsford were very aware of us. And if you walked into town with Bermuda shorts on, somebody would be on the phone to Sister Josephine Louise to say, "Oh, we saw one of your girls in town today with Bermuda shorts on."
The class of 68 got the dress code changed, or they were at least fighting it. But then I heard from a lady in the 30s, they had what was called the Great Lipstick Rebellion because Mother so-and-so didn't allow them to wear lipstick. So one brave young woman stood up, demanded, or said, they really felt that they should be able.
Despite these rules, the students found plenty of ways to have fun.
We wrote and performed skits. Halloween, each class was responsible for a 15-minute skit. You had to come up with you had to write the script, you had to find the costuming, you had to do all of the props, and you had to carry it off up on stage, and the whole class would be
And
involved.
then there usually was a contest too.
Either a Friday night or a Saturday night, a couple times a month, really. We would have what we would call mixers, where there would be a dance band here, and then the guys would come from Fisher.
Or the U of R.
Sometimes they'd come from Holy Cross. We would spontaneously come up with some song somebody wrote that depicted what was going on during the day or something like that. We were juniors, I think, and the sophomore class came in one night and they sang, "Glow, little glowworm, glimmer, glimmer. 75% of us should be slimmer. Teeth are false and knees are knocking. Eyes are cross-eyed, even in the moonlight." Something like that.
Yeah.
Ruffles in our petty pants, runs in our stockings. We are the girls whose knees are knocking. We are the girls who have bad breath. The girls from Nazareth. I mean, they would come up with this stuff all the time, just
That's
out
so
of the
funny.
blue. And we'd all learn all the words.
Yeah, they were. During the winter, there would be like a snow festival in which
we would shovel snow 10 or 12 feet high.
So there was a competition for snow sculptures.
And then the art students would come out and they would make something.
But you had to participate in getting the snow,
Yeah,
all right?
in order to be-
And in many
Yeah.
cases, they gave you blue paint and said, "Here, paint this circle," or something. So they did the sculpting, okay, but we did all the brunt work.
So sometimes there were snow sculptures like all winter because they would freeze after a while.
Yeah.
So one year, of course, now the drinking age was 18 back then, so we were familiar with beer. The nuns didn't approve, but they weren't going to do anything about it apparently. But anyway, so sure enough, one class shoveled and shoveled and shoveled and shoveled and shoveled and shoveled. And when they got all finished, right in front of Smith Hall, which was the administration building right then in the main classrooms, right in front of the front entrance were 8-foot-tall beer mugs, Schultz, Dooley, and the Countess from Utica Club beer. And they were all like German tankards, with the caps on them, and all the designs, the
little
German
colors.
designs
Yeah.
all
So
around,
fun.
and the handles coming out like this.
Yes.
And they were like 8 feet tall. They were there all winter.
They were also athletic.
We had some intramural sports. Trust me, this was really basic, non-professional. We played tennis, we rode bikes, we walked. We would take long walks, just going down French Road, or we would go bicycling along the canal.
Student interviewers asked what they did on the weekends.
We didn't go out during the week at all.
We'd go to Pittsford, go to the bars, where we could not really afford to drink. And we could drink at 18 in those days. And we'd hang out mostly, wash my hair, do my laundry, study, I suppose.
If you didn't have like a guy back home or something, Friday night you were in the dorm, listening to music with your big curlers in your hair. It was kind of pathetic.
We also, for example, were able to get tickets to the Eastman Theater at a very discounted price. So a lot of us would just hop the bus and go downtown to the concerts.
Something keeps coming up that is a little strange.
I'll tell you, it was, and it probably still is, no smoking campus. And there were a few of us who used to sneak out in the summer behind the bushes out in the front that doesn't even exist anymore. There were, and I don't know if they still exist, but smokers. Down in the basement of Smith Hall, there were 2 of them. Each smoker had its own little group of women who went into them for the day, and there was a constant revolving bridge game. I mean, it ran from morning until the end of school day, and if somebody had class, somebody else was always there to take a seat.
And hang out in the smoker. Everybody used to play bridge. That was the big thing. And my friend and I just didn't want to learn to play bridge. We just didn't want to do that. So we used to say, "Can we have a fourth for conversation?" Will anybody talk to us, or are you all going to be playing bridge?
Mass or chapel was on Thursdays and Sundays, and students were expected to attend in their graduation gowns.
You were expected to show up at Mass. However, we used to get around having to get up too early in the morning by rolling up our pajama pants and putting on a trench coat and going to chapel. So, that sort of was silly.
In 2023, our dining hall is set up cafeteria style, and we have an additional 2 retail dining locations, but these alumni had a different experience.
For breakfast and lunch, it was cafeteria style, but in the evening, you sat at a table with 6 other people, and you were expected to dress also. You couldn't just show up
Dress for dinner.
Yes.
And you also conversed. You thought of some topic and you brought it up and you talk about it.
Mostly boys, but we weren't. It wasn't very intellectual.
And we ate family style, which was great. That was a really bonding thing. Because we all ate at the same time. I really feel that it contributed greatly to our lasting friendships, because we would sit at the table and talk.
Some of the biggest changes on campus are, of course, going from a women's college to coeducational, becoming interfaith rather than Catholic, the number of men who were hired to teach, the size of the campus, and the cost of attendance.
Of course, one thing that's really happened at Nazareth College is the disappearance of the nuns.
The horses are gone.
No horses?
And no horses. Another huge thing at the time that has changed was the issue of marriage.
If you got married, you had to leave the school.
But that didn't stop some of the alums from finding their future husbands during their time here. Of course, some things remain the same.
There seems to be a sense of maintaining the legacy and the heritage that the original sisters who started this college had in mind. And that's important to alums such as I, who return to the campus and who donate to different programs. It's important that we still feel that we belong here.
I consider this place still faith-based because it's values-based, and that makes a big difference. I have a classmate who since has died who stopped donating to the college when it became a state institution rather than a Catholic institution. There was a big shift there. And during that time, I used to talk to him and say, well, that's not going to change the college. That doesn't have to change the college. He said, it's still going to be wonderful young people coming in, getting educated, and learning values.
It's the values. It does instill the values that they made me a more whole person, and it made me able to deal with my surroundings in my life and most of my choices in life.
What were those values?
Oh, gosh. Self-esteem. My sense came from knowing that I have accomplished this task of getting through school, achieving a certain degree of education, putting that education to work, having the respect of my peers and my friends, society in general. That, to me, that's self-esteem, and that I've done something that I can be proud of.
The alumni were asked if they have any advice for current Nazareth students.
I couldn't presume. Are you kidding? Your life is so very different than our life was. I don't know. I guess to just take advantage of all the opportunities you have. Like I said, that you wouldn't even recognize. We don't recognize the campus physically we don't recognize the campus. Our life was so different from yours.
Enjoy every single minute. Live it to its fullest. And look for help when you need it. Don't try and go it on your own.
Think for yourself. Be able to stand on your own 2 feet. Do what is right, but intellectually continue learning.
Be yourself. Don't imitate. Just who you are is wonderful. And to maintain your values, kindness and honesty do not go out of style. It's not just to have those values, you've got to stand up for them. So vote. Vote. Vote.
Every single election, I don't care if it's for dog catcher, you go and you say, I'd rather have this dog catcher than that dog catcher.
And so these stories come to a close.
I have to say, Nazareth is just this huge thing in my life. I made incredible lifelong friends. I I met my husband here.
My memories of Nazareth are wonderful. I got out of my little cocoon and got into a bigger cocoon. It was really a big part of my life, and I think that Nazareth shaped a lot of who I am and gave me a lot of wonderful friends. My years here were good years.
You know, I remember the day that I got here and my parents left. And I remember as they were driving away, and this is 52 years ago, thinking, what will my life be like now? And it's been wonderful. And I owe a lot of it to Nazareth.
My name is Katie Wilburn, and I'm a student intern in the Center for Public History at Nazareth University. I want to thank everyone who has participated in the Nazareth Centennial Oral History Project, either as a narrator or as an interviewer. You've contributed something so valuable to our school. Thank you.
And of course, our thanks to you, the listener. If you like what you hear, let us know. You can email us at publichistory@naz.edu or call us at 585-389-2649.